With the help from their investor and executive pals over at MasterCard, Amex, Visa, Jerome Powell is pushing Americans right over the edge with killer interest rates and monster credit card debt. They're also taking a bite out of the market. Even Apple, the company that they say is too big to fail, just delivered a very disappointing earnings report as iPhone sales have been dropping. Gee, I wonder why. It's almost like people can't afford expensive stuff like iPhone 14s, Apple Kindles anymore because there's a recession. Anyway, more on that in our video today, including why you should check your credit cards and your savings bank account. But first, how you guys doing? Are you still feeling the red hot inflation where you are? Here's a message that I got from one of our community members just recently. My personal food inflation is about 20%. Ramen cups up 25% from 6 months ago. Organic eggs up about 18% from 6+ months ago. It's becoming more widely known that the government figures include numerous small items like paper clips in their inflation statistics. These kinds of things have not risen in price. So these sorts of things automatically bring down the overall inflation rate, which makes the inflation rate that they're advertising seem a whole lot lower than what it is. Items like rent, food, energy, they're all diminished in importance, and in other words, government statistics on inflation. Like basically everything that's coming out of Washington, D.C. needs to be questioned. Let me know if you guys feel the same about this one, guys. Drop me a quick comment down below. Also, if you own a home, make sure your home is protected. Get your free home warranty quote. There's a link in the description of this video down below. I know, the Federal Reserve and the continuous interest rate hikes, they may seem like white noise to you at this point. But just to really bring the point home for you guys, and for our financial freedom fam, this time last year, the average interest rate on a credit card balance was 16.2%, and now it's 19.9%. That's almost 20%, guys. The difference between $16 to $20, it's not that much, I agree. But the difference between 16% and 20% interest on a balance, usually thousands of dollars, this is a huge difference. But let's check out the percentages on a credit card calculator. Now, if you have a balance of say $5,000, which is about average, and let's say you're paying the minimum payment at about 16% interest, it's going to take you 24 years to pay off that balance, and you're going to pay about $15,000 in interest. That is 16% interest. Now, when we change the calculator to reflect that 20% interest rate, not only does your minimum payment have to increase by $16 a month, but the interest that you're going to pay over time increases too. Now you're looking at almost $20,000 in interest. Credit card annual percentage rates are now near 20% on average, which is up from 16.3% a year ago. Now, at the same time, more cardholders carry debt from month to month while paying sky-high interest charges. So whatever you can pay above the minimum payment, it's going to help you because your payment isn't going to get better anytime soon. I read a quote from a money expert from, get this, Debt Sucks University. They said, quote, "What you need to know is that the Federal Reserve said that they're not going to stop the hikes and that they're not cutting interest rates in 2023. That means right now, this is the lowest you'll ever see in your payment. It's going to go higher," end quote. Their advice? Put a dent on that credit card debt as much as you can. When you can, pay more than the minimum payment and focus on the credit card with the lowest balance and pay it off. And if all else fails, get a zero interest balance transfer credit card to freeze the interest rate. Give yourself a little bit of financial breathing room. Mortgage rates are also going to be staying higher. The average interest rate for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage is now around 6.4%, which is up almost 3 full percentage points from 3.55% a year ago. This translates to roughly $9,360 over the lifetime of a 30-year loan, assuming that the average home loan is around $400,000. Another money expert, billionaire hedge fund investor Ray Dalio, said that cash is no longer trash with the kind of economy and the markets that we're seeing.
Help us try to understand what's happening. We always talk about the economic machine. We've got the Federal Reserve as part of that machine of sorts, at least trying to assess what that machine's going to do. You saw what Jay Powell said yesterday. I think we're all trying to make sense of where we really are.
Okay, well, I mean, these things happen over and over again. We're now in the 12th and a half cycle. You know, these cycles, you know how the cycles work. You're 12 and a half cycles since 1945. 1945 was the New World Order, you know, new monetary system. And you know what happens. So let me take you through it quickly. You get a funky economy, weakness, and so on. So what we had, of course, in 2020 with the combination of COVID, and then also the move from the right to the left. There was a distribution of wealth. And so how did you do that? The government had to send out a bunch of checks.
Yep.
And the Federal Reserve, where did the government get the money from? The Federal Reserve lent it. So we have an imbalance. And of course, that put a lot of money in the system. You've got the demand, you've got the cycle, classic cycle, right? Stimulation, credit becomes debt, then you have inflation, then you have a tightness of monetary policy. And so where are we? So we now in a classic spot where we've got a relatively high real interest rate. Real interest rates went from minus 175 basis points to plus 175 basis points, right? You've got a cash rate that's relatively high. Cash used to be trashy. Cash is pretty attractive now. You've got an inverted yield
curve. Say that
curve.
again. You said trash is now more attractive?
Cash
is trash, is what you used to say.
Yes, cash was negative,
right?
1.5%, 2% real rates. Terrible. Now cash is relatively attractive.
Now, I have to say, most stock market investors right now, they're just plain delusional and disconnected from the real economy. They see the Fed tightening the screws with those interest rates. Investors say that the Fed is going to loosen up soon, though. Right now, I'm going to say it. When that delusion finally cracks, we're going to see all sorts of crashes in the market. All you have to do is check out the latest company earnings reports, and you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. Apple was top of the Google search results when their earnings report came out. And for good reason. Apple disappointed in their quarterly earnings report and sent its stock sliding. Apple raked in $117 billion in revenue in the 3-month period ending December 25th. That marked its first year-over-year decline since 2019 and a 5% decrease from the same time frame last year. That tallied $30 billion in profit in the period, or roughly $1.88 per share. That's an 11% decline. Not a good look, Apple. Now, unfortunately, stock analysts pegged the number at $121.4 billion in sales and $1.94 earnings per share. And surprise, surprise, looks like nobody can afford a brand new iPhone anymore, or at least not at the clip that they previously were. Now, Apple reported $65.8 billion in Apple iPhone sales in the quarter. That's an 8% decrease from the same period a year prior and short of analysts' expectations. After all this, Apple's stock price dropped heavy, 4% in after-hours trading, nearly $100 billion in market cap just lost in a matter of hours on the company stock. Some hope for Apple stock, though. First, they're reportedly angling to launch a mixed reality headset later this year. Plus, instead of laying off their employees, Apple slashed its compensation package for its CEO, Tim Cook, by more than 40% this year, cutting his target pay to $49 million with $9 million in salary and bonuses and $40 million in stock rewards. Cook is still worth about $1.8 billion, so I don't think he's really going to feel a whole heck of a lot in his personal budget, but an Apple employee probably would. So special shout out to Tim Cook for taking it on the chin for the team and not laying off additional employees. Nice one, sir. Add to that, Google, Alphabet, and Amazon also reported earnings in the same period. Shares of the Google parent and the commerce giant sank after each company posted lagging quarterly profits. Facebook parent company Meta notched its second best daily stock gain even after giving their own quarterly financial results, making its CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, $12 billion richer. Now, with that being said, there is hope for Apple stock if you're considering to invest in this for a little bit of passive income. Now, of course, make sure you always do your homework and invest in it only if you believe in it. Now, let's talk about Jerome Powell and the latest interest rate hike, right? So the Federal Reserve has been on a mission to fight inflation since early 2022. To that end, it's been implementing aggressive interest rate hikes so that they can drive up the cost of consumer borrowing and basically put Americans in a very tight spot financially in order to get them to stop spending. By making it more expensive for consumers to borrow money in different forms, the Fed is hoping to encourage a pullback in spending, which should narrow the aforementioned supply-demand gap and help bring down the cost of living. Sure, it has to do with the people spending, right? They say wages are too high. What about all the profit grabbing and billions that these executives are making? I guess they're not having any huge effect, huh? I love how labor inflation scares them enough to try and trigger a recession, but historic corporate profits are not a concern. It's funny how their one tool in their arsenal to adjust interest rates only targets the lower income and middle class Americans. It's like the system is rigged. Also, there is a big elephant in the room: demographics and the aging boomers, right? Anyway, the Fed is trying to show that they care. Double emphasis on the word trying, because they still pushed interest rates higher with a 0.25% rate hike. When we compare that to the multiple 0.75% rate hikes that came down the pike in 2022, that is clearly a far more modest increase. But if you owe money on your credit cards, It's an increase that you'll want to be mindful of nonetheless, because we're looking at yet another rate hike, albeit a smaller one. You'll need to pay attention to the interest rate that you're paying on your credit card debt. Unlike home equity and personal loans, which give you a fixed interest rate on your debt, credit card interest rates can be variable. This means they can rise and fall with market conditions, so the Fed's latest decision could very well make your debt way more expensive to pay off. Now, I'm not going to tell you to cut back like other YouTube channels and self-proclaimed financial gurus. I already know most of us are barely scraping by. Instead, I recommend looking into a more manageable side hustle or additional income streams to supplement your cash flow. I know. It's hard to imagine with the lack of time and capital that most of us have. But there are some options if you're willing to look around. Some of them don't even have very much or any startup costs. Just really need your drive and hustle. But let me know if you guys want to learn more about this. I could definitely do a video for you guys on the next one. Just hit me up in the comments down below. Also, many investors are turning to gold nowadays as a hedge against inflation. Now, if you're interested in the best way to invest in gold, definitely check out the link in the description down below. Now, aside from your credit cards, you should also take a look at the savings account and make sure that you're not falling behind. Now, with the Fed continuously raising interest rates, multiple banks now pay savings bank interest rates between 4 and 4.5%. And with the current rate hike, savers may see rates rise once again. But of course, you'll likely have to shop around in order to get them. I don't usually see the big banks offering the most competitive deals on interest rates. But if you want the most competitive deals on interest rates, definitely check out the links in the description down below. I found some top tier banks paying some very high interest. Now, if you look at your average bank right now, you'll likely still not see very good rates, but the great rates are out there. You just have to look for them. The average savings bank account is still right around 0.23%. And so this means that to get higher rates, you may have to shop around for savings accounts. Try looking for more competitive online savings accounts and then move your money, as all banks don't just automatically raise rates after a Fed meeting. All you need to do is move your savings account, which you can then link back to your checking account. Your day-to-day financial routine, including direct deposit, automatic payments, and debit card stuff, all that stays intact. More financial education tips and strategies in the next one, guys. Make sure you're always subscribed and you have your notification bell turned on. So I hope you caught all of the information in today's financial freedom update and daily news report. The Fed pushing America over the recessionary cliff. Credit card debt, it's about to take over the working class. And the best way you could make some money out of this Fed rate hike. Appreciate you guys watching, and even bigger thanks for hitting the like button. I really appreciate it, guys. As always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Be kind to one another, and I'll see you on the next one.